Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is your ultimate guide to Der Anfang, but I will warn you that this map is going to evolve a bit as the year goes on, and as such, I'd recommend subscribing so you don't miss my updates to this video if they do add anything really transformative. We're going to start out with the map layout to show you where everything is once you open everything up. You're going to spawn in with the box on your left-hand side just here. The exfil is going to be right in front of you. It's this runestone that will open up a bit later in your game. And on the right-hand side here, we've got the crafting table, which has armor in it this year. There's no armor station. This is where you get your armor, as well as the stuff that you're going to be crafting. And there's also an ammo box just here that you can buy ammo from as well. On the other side of the fountain in the middle here, you've got the Covenants station, the Altar of Covenants, and that's where you spend your hearts that you get for completing objectives, which we'll talk about in a sec. The Pack-a-Punch machine is here as well, and that's basically everything in this central area. Now, once you start doing objectives, which we'll talk about in a second, you're going to start opening up new areas of the map, and that's where all the perks are. So I'm going to run through all of those now. The first one is this blue Vigor perk, which is basically the new quick revive. It doesn't mean that you revive faster though, it means that you regen your health faster. So it's that aspect of quick revive, that's why I say new quick revive, that is embodied within this perk. Next up, we've got Speed Cola. It's down this little corridor here, and this is a quite enclosed space, so be careful in there. And that's just your traditional Speed Cola, nothing too fancy about it. On the other side of the map, going to the other side here, we've got Stamina Up inside this room by this massive painting. And then there are two more. One of them is just behind the spawn area here, and that's going to be your Jug, which is going to give you a health boost just like regular Jug does. And then finally, we have our last perk, which gives you increased critical damage, and that one can be found just here inside this building. There are no wall guns in the game, so you're going to be wanting to use the mystery box to get new weapons as you play, and you'll also get weapons dropped from some enemies, and also these crates, which are littered around this area. If you roam around while you're in the Stalingrad central hub world, you'll find them fairly frequently, and you'll also be able to find red crystals which you can shoot to get bonuses, such as salvage or maybe some equipment like monkey bombs or weapons. I would highly recommend every time you're in Stalingrad doing at least 2 or 3 of these little crystal things just to top up your resources. I think that by doing this repeatedly as you play, you'll end up with plenty of resources nice and early, and it's just a good thing to do. Anyway, let's talk about your sort of general map flow when you spawn in, right? You might want to kill a couple of zombies, shoot a crystal, get a little bit of free salvage, but then you've got to do an objective. You have 3 options to pick from: Blitz, Harvest, and Transmit. I'll walk through what each of those does in a minute, but first I just want to say you may want to do this portal I'm showing you here first in your game. No matter what the objective is, I think doing this first is a good idea because it's going to open up the area where Jug is that I showed you a second ago, and it'll mean that as soon as you're done with objective 1, you can pick that up and you'll just be stronger straight away. So this is a really, really good one to do first. Okay, on to the objectives themselves, because they do randomize to their various portals and to the maps that you're going to be taken to as well. We'll start with Harvest. There's going to be a Sin Eater, which is basically just a stone obelisk floating in the area that you're teleported to, and you need to kill a bunch of zombies, and randomly they will drop runestones which you can pick up and then put into the Sin Eater. You need 5 to fill it up, and then the Sin Eater will move, and you can just keep on killing zombies, get another 5, rinse, and repeat. After 3 filled Sin Eaters, you'll be teleported back to Stalingrad and you'll have completed your objective. The next objective that we're going to talk about is Blitz, and this one is very straightforward. It's just a survive objective. You just have to live. You don't actually have to get any kills if you don't want to. You can just run around, but I would recommend you do get kills, certainly in the early rounds, because those points that you earn from getting the kills are going to be very useful. So get a bunch of kills, just survive in the area, and once you've finished it, once again, you'll be teleported back to Stalingrad. The third objective type is Transmit, and this one requires you to escort a floating head on a fixed path through the level you're teleported to. Now, the head will only move if you're fairly close to it, so you are going to want to stay fairly nearby. But bear in mind, once again, if you're having trouble with this, you can run back away from the head, chill out a little bit, maybe get some kills or get the zombies bunched up nice and tightly, and then start escorting the head through, and you'll have a little bit of an easier time, I think, if you do that and sort of take your time. Once the head completes its little progress bar, you'll be teleported back to Stalingrad, and you can do your next objective. So now you understand the objective types. What's this doing each time we do one? Well, initially, like I mentioned with Jug, doing an objective through a certain portal is going to open up the map behind behind that portal. So we chose the objective that was nearest to Jug because that's going to open the Jug area. Similarly, we can then do another objective in that area if we want to open up the building behind Jug, which contains the critical damage buff perk. My personal preference for the way to open things up is to open the Jug portal first, and then I grab Jug as soon as I get back, and then I do the portal on the opposite side, which takes me to New Quick Revive, and I pick that up once I've finished the round 2 objective as well, just because those are both survivability perks that are really good to have early on, and your gun's already going to be doing plenty of damage in rounds 1 and 2, so you don't really need damage buffs from anything else. So those are my recommendations. Like I said though, you should also, as you go through, be scavenging for those little chests and also shooting those crystals to get free salvage and stuff. Now, a change they made this year is that the perk machines at level 1 at their base tier are free. So after you complete that round 1 objective, you can just run up to Jug and buy it even if you've got less than 2.5k points, and you will still get a health bonus. What's new this year is you can buy extra tiers of the perks for an increasing amount of money. So tier 2 costs 2.5k points, tier 3 costs 5k points, and tier 4 costs 7.5k. Each upgrade is going to give you like a 25% boost. So with the health upgrade from Jug, you get 25 extra health at tier 1, 50 at tier 2, 75 at tier 3, and 100 at tier 4, bringing you to a total of 200 health. Similar applies to the other perks and the upgrades that they give you. At tier 4 stamina, for example, you're basically going to run twice as fast as if you didn't have stam. And this might sound great, but there is a catch, and that's that when you go down, you will never lose your tier 1 perk. You'll always keep that no matter what, but if you have a higher tier, such as tier 3 stamina up and tier 4 Jug, those perks will reduce 1 tier when you go down and then pick yourself up with a self-revive, or you get revived by a teammate. And that's both perks. You won't just lose one of them or anything like that. So your tier 3 stam and tier 4 Jug will go down to tier 2 stam and tier 3 Jug. This means that losing those tier 4s can get really expensive to reset because it costs 7.5k. So I would advise against buying tier 4 upgrades early in your game and only get the tier 4s when you've pretty much got everything else locked down. The exception to this probably being Jug, because Jug is going to really meaningfully prevent you from dying by giving you that extra health. Another thing that you're going to want to do every time you come back from completing an objective is checking the Altar of Covenants, because doing an objective gives you a heart, and you can spend the hearts at the altar. There are 11 total covenants that you can get, and they're randomized, so 3 will show up each time you teleport back to Stalingrad, and as you go through the rounds, they will also get rarer, so you'll be able to get even better versions of those same 11 covenants. I'm going to make a full video about the best covenant loadouts, which will be linked in the description, but for now, I really recommend Motherload because it means you keep your equipment when you throw it, which can be really useful in this, and I also think Cryo Freeze is a good one to pick up if you're intending to use Cull the Weak. Cryo will slow enemies down, and Cull the Weak will mean you do more damage to slowed enemies, so they have clear synergy. Brain Rot is also really good, and it's especially good on shotguns, but like I said, more info in my dedicated Covenants video. My recommendation for this is for the first round or 2 in your game, you actually don't spend your hearts, you just hold on to them, because that's going to mean that you have more likelihood to get more rare Covenants when you're at later rounds and you check the machine, or the altar rather. And also, if there are multiple that you want to get once they start getting rarer, then you'll have hearts available to use them, and you really don't need the power boost at like round 2. It's fine. Next, let's talk about the new zombie types. So there are your standard zombies. They're going to chase you. It's just the normal sort of thing, and they will start super sprinting around round 14 or so be very careful of that. You then have Boom Schreiers, which are basically pests from World War II zombies. When they get near you, they'll explode, and if you shoot them, they'll also explode, and they can be really useful for blowing up other zombies, so that's a pro tip that you should definitely utilize in your game. And there are also covenants in the game that will synergize with killing zombies with explosives, so you should keep that in mind too. And then you have the big fat guys. They're called like Sturmgewehrs or something, I don't know, but they're big chunky zombies that will shoot you, and they're pretty inaccurate, but if you're super close to them, like stuffed up against their barrel, they're gonna really do a lot of damage to you, so I'd be very careful of those. Shoot them in the head to take them down really easily. They'll take quite a lot of damage to the head, and also just make use of the fact that they can't turn around that easily, so if you run behind them, they'll take a second to actually turn around and then start shooting you again. Next, I want to quickly talk about armor. After your first 3 or 4 rounds or so, you should be able to buy armor tier 1 from the machine. It's going to cost 750 salvage, so it's a little expensive, but you should be able to get it fairly quickly. But you can get tier 1 for free, just like you can in Cold War, if you find an armor vest before you buy armor. So find an armor vest, you'll get tier 1 for free, it'll save you that little bit of salvage, and then you can start working straight towards tier 2 and tier 3, which you cannot get free from armor vests, but you can get obviously from buying it from the machine. It's probably also worth noting that you've got 4 field upgrades in this. You've got Ether Shroud, Ring of Fire, Energy Mine, Shine, and Frost Blast, and the one that you pick is also going to determine which god is talking to you the most in your game. So think of this almost as picking an ability, yes, but also picking a character. Each of the gods has their own personalities, which is pretty cool, and there'll be more info that I post about this as the story progresses on my channel. So you have a pretty decent idea, I think, of the rough flow of things now. It's time to talk about strategy and how to sort of get through some of those higher rounds. So I'd say once you get to round 5 or 6, that's when you're going to really start wanting a pack-a-punched weapon. And my recommendation would be to spin the box a couple times. I know I haven't said this in years because in Cold War you really didn't need to use the box, but spin the box a few times because you can get pack-a-punched weapons out of the box. Weapon rarities are not in the game. They've just been replaced with Pack-a-Punch rarities. So if you get a colored weapon, that means it's already been Pack-a-Punched. Blue is tier 1, purple's tier 2, and orange is tier 3. You can also get packed weapons, remember, out of those crates, and that's why I'm recommending that you keep scavenging those throughout your game, just in case you get a lucky pull and get a really powerful weapon. Of course, you do have the option to just spend 7.5k on pack tier 1, but to me, it makes more sense to spin the box a few times, maybe get a weapon that you like more, and also simultaneously end up getting one that's already Pack-a-Punched. So that's what I'd say for the sort of rounds 5 to 7 area, I suppose. And then you're going to start noticing, especially around round 10, 11, that the zombies get a lot stronger, and you're really going to want to get to sort of pack tier 3 at that point if you can. But again, you're probably going to find it much better to spin the box and try and get a pack tier 3 weapon out of the box instead of spending 30 grand on tier 3. It's just so damn expensive, man. And granted, you can absolutely do it, especially if you're slaying out as you go through those objectives, and you are going to probably want to pack-a-punch your own weapon if you've brought in a sick loadout weapon. But just for sort of more casual players, I think using the box in this game is actually something that I would recommend. I'd say getting all of your free perks as you go through the various areas, as you do your first couple of objectives and stuff is essential. They're free, you might as well. And then beyond that, I would say upgrading Jug first, and probably Speed Cola would be my recommendations. I think the Quick Revive perk, which I think is called Venomous Vigor or something like that this year, is something worth upgrading, but I wouldn't get it to tier 4. I wouldn't do anything to tier 4 actually, other than Jug early on. I would just focus on making sure you've got powerful weapons. I think it's much more important. I'd also strongly advise if you get a Monkey Bomb from a drop or something like that, to pick it up and hoard those, because we're going to be using those for some of these strats that I'm going to talk about in a sec. So let's say you're struggling at any round, honestly. It could be that it's before round 10 and you're a little bit less of an experienced player, or it's around round 15 and you're really a more experienced player, but it is starting to get really tricky. Here are some ideas that can make your life easier and help you get to higher rounds. Number 1, for Blitz, you do not have to kill like I mentioned before, but you can also use terrain to your advantage. So as you can see here, the zombies actually get staggered every time I jump off a high obstacle. So I'm standing on this box, I jump off it, and the zombies all get confused when I land. I think the reason for this is that while you're in the air, the zombies can't path to you, so this could be a good way to kind of waste time in the game and avoid them all kind of rapidly running towards you all at once, and it's just generally a useful trick to know. Similarly, with Transmit, I kind of feel like it's easier sometimes not to kill, depending on your area and where you are and how open it is. As you can see in the gameplay here, I'm just kind of gliding through the zombies, and the fact that I'm not constantly making more zombies spawn in, and I'm also not focusing on shooting them and like using up brain power doing that, means that I can just path. Like I can use my brain power to just path around the zombies, and it's really straightforward. It really makes it a lot easier. However, you will not earn as many points doing this, so this is something that I'd say maybe is something you should consider later in the game when it's harder to kill the zombies, and probably less consider for the first few rounds. Those early rounds, you need to be getting kills because you want the points. Another high round tip for Transmit is just to rinse the monkey bombs, man. Like, use those monkeys like there is no tomorrow, and honestly, Ether Shroud is kind of handy for this too, but I'd use your Ether Shroud if possible earlier in your Transmit session so that you can charge it back up again and then use it again later in the Transmit objective. And while you're trying to charge it, that's the perfect opportunity to use a monkey bomb. And if you've got the Motherload Covenant, like I said before, that's going to mean that you can throw a monkey and you don't even lose it in your inventory. You keep it, but the monkey still goes out, so you can throw multiple from one monkey, which is so useful. And some of the areas that you have to transmit in are so tight and crowded. I think this is going to be one of the only ways to actually make this work. So highly recommend monkey bombs, Motherload Covenant, Ether Shroud, and a hell of a lot of patience. For Harvest, I say if you're having any trouble, remember that if you get all of the runestones into a given Sin Eater, it will wipe away any zombies remaining on the map at that time. So if you're a bit later in the rounds, you've got a load of new zombie types that are all attacking you and stuff like that, and you're just getting a bit flustered, fill up that particular Sin Eater and all those other zombies will disappear, and then you can move on to the next one kind of in peace. Another tip that goes for all objectives is to use the big chungus guys with the guns to actually stagger other zombies. So if you're in an area and having some trouble, you might find that Stormgewehr guy or whatever shoots into the horde, knocks zombies over for you the same way a mangler can do, and that might mean that you can get a quick getaway or get some easy shots in and stuff like that. It isn't always in your best interests to kill the beefy guys straight away because of this. Like, you can use this to your advantage, especially on some of the objectives. Another thing to be aware of is you can kind of get a free self-revive, sort of. So basically, if you're teleporting and you go down while a teleport is already queued up and happening in like 10 seconds, don't use your self-revive while you're knocked down, because when the game teleports you, it will automatically stand you up when you get to the next area and you'll have your self-revive. Like, it won't have used it. So that's just a handy tip that you can be aware of. In terms of what weapons are the best, I would recommend one of your weapons being something like a shotgun, something like that, that's PAP tier 3, of course, especially if you're using brain rot. And then your other weapon should be something like a fairly heavy LMG or something along those lines. That way you can run around and be nimble with the shotgun, and it's also going to mean that you can just delete anything in front of you sort of instantly because it's a shotgun. But then also for those situations where there are bigger hordes and stuff like that, you have the LMG to just absolutely rip and tear until it is done. Whenever you get tired of playing, you can exfil. You just hold square on this rune in the spawn area, and then you'll need to kill about 45 zombies. There's no timer for killing those zombies, so do it at a pace that feels comfortable for you, and when that's done, a portal will spawn in on one of the two sides of the map, and you just need to run over to it and hold square in about a minute. Like, you've got a timer for that part of it, and then you'll be finished. You'll have exfilled. In case you're wondering, at launch, there's no main quest Easter egg, there's no Pack-a-Punch camo, there's no pausing in solo. These things are not just you, this is just how it works. So I expect there to be some really big changes to this in the coming months, but for now, thanks for watching, subscribe if this was useful, and I'll see you in more Vanguard Zombies content, and to be honest, probably more Cold War and Black Ops 3 content and stuff as well very soon. So subscribe for that, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.